The British Empire was one of the largest empires in human history. It spanned the globe and lasted for centuries. Understanding its rise and fall helps us understand the world today. This essay will explore the key periods of the British Empire. We will look at its growth, its peak, and its eventual decline. We will begin with the early voyages of exploration. Then we will examine the establishment of colonies. We will see how Britain became a dominant global power by the 19th century. Finally, we will discuss the factors that led to its decline and eventual collapse. The legacy of the British Empire is complex and multifaceted. It left behind a mixed legacy with positive and negative impacts on its colonies. This essay will analyze this complex legacy and explore its relevance to the modern world. The 16th century was a time of great change in Europe. The Renaissance had brought new ideas, and there was a renewed interest in exploration. European nations began to look outwards, seeking new trade routes to the east and new lands and resources. England was no exception to this trend. Inspired by the voyages of Spanish and Portuguese explorers, English sailors set sail, aiming to discover their own routes to the riches of Asia. One of the most famous of these early explorers was Sir Francis Drake. He circumnavigated the globe and returned to England with a cargo of Spanish treasure. These early voyages were not just about exploration, they were also about trade. English merchants were eager to find new markets for their goods and to break the monopoly of the Spanish and Portuguese. The English East India Company was formed in 1600 and would play a pivotal role in establishing British dominance in Asia. As English exploration continued, so too did colonization. North America became a key focus. The first permanent English settlement in North America was Jamestown, Virginia, founded in 1607. Other colonies soon followed along the Atlantic coast. Life in these early colonies was harsh. Colonists faced disease, starvation, and conflict with Native Americans. However, the colonies grew and attracted settlers seeking new opportunities. The colonies developed their own identities and became increasingly independent from England. Tensions between England and the American colonies grew in the 18th century. Disputes over taxation and representation culminated in the American Revolution from 1775 to 1783. The colonists fought for and won their independence. This event had a profound impact on the British Empire, forcing a reassessment of colonial policy and marking the beginning of the empire's eventual decline. While the British Empire faced challenges in North America, it was expanding elsewhere. They were really spreading their wings. India, with its vast resources and potential wealth, became a major prize. You could say it was the crown jewel of their ambitions. The British East India Company, initially established for trade, gradually increased its power, taking advantage of the weakening Mughal Empire to assert its authority. They were trading up in the world. The Battle of Plassey in 1757 was a turning point. It was a real Game of Thrones. The East India Company's forces, led by Robert Clive, defeated the Nawab of Bengal. Clive really clived his way to victory. This victory gave the British control of Bengal, a wealthy and populous region, marking the beginning of British dominance in India. They were Bengal to rule. Over the next century, the British expanded their control over the subcontinent, facing resistance from local rulers and from the Indian people. It was a subcontinental drift. However, by the mid-19th century, Britain had become the undisputed ruler of India. They were ruling the roost. India became the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, providing raw materials, markets for British goods, and strategic importance. It was a gem of a deal for the British. Section 5. Ruling the waves, the height of empire in the 19th century. The 19th century was the age of British imperial dominance. Britain emerged from the Napoleonic Wars as the world's leading power. It had a powerful navy. It controlled key trade routes. Its industrial revolution gave it a technological advantage. The British Empire expanded rapidly during this period. It acquired new colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. By the end of the century, the British Empire encompassed nearly a quarter of the world's landmass. It ruled over a population of hundreds of millions of people. The Victorian era, particularly the reign of Queen Victoria from 1837 to 1901, is often seen as the high point of British imperialism. British culture, values and institutions were spread throughout the empire. The British believed in their own superiority. They felt it was their duty to civilize the world. Section 6. Seeds of change, challenges and revolts within the empire. Even at its height, the British Empire faced challenges. The costs of maintaining such a vast empire were high. There was growing resistance to British rule in many parts of the empire. One of the most significant challenges came from India. The Indian Mutiny of 1857, sparked by grievances over insensitive British practices, shook the foundations of British rule. Although the mutiny was suppressed, it led to significant changes in the administration of India. Nationalist movements emerged in many parts of the empire. People began to question the legitimacy of British rule. They demanded self-determination. These movements gained momentum in the early 20th century. They would eventually lead to the empire's dismantling. Section 7. A World at War. The decline of British hegemony. The First World War from 1914 to 1918 marked a turning point in the fortunes of the British Empire. Although Britain and its allies emerged victorious, the war had come at a tremendous cost. Britain was heavily in debt. Its industrial dominance had been challenged. The war also had a profound impact on the colonies. Millions of colonial subjects had fought for Britain. They had been promised greater autonomy in return. This fueled nationalist aspirations. It made it increasingly difficult for Britain to maintain control. The Second World War from 1939 to 1945 further weakened the British Empire. Britain was once again victorious. However, it emerged from the war financially exhausted, and its global standing diminished. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as the new superpowers, eclipsing British power. Section 8. Letting go, decolonization and the end of empire. The post-war period witnessed the rapid dismantling of the British Empire. Faced with growing nationalist movements and economic pressures, Britain could no longer hold on to its colonies. India, the jewel in the crown, gained independence in 1947. The process of decolonization was not always peaceful. There were violent struggles for independence in some colonies, such as Kenya and Malaya. The legacy of colonialism, including artificial borders and ethnic divisions, contributed to conflicts that continue to this day. By the end of the 20th century, the British Empire had effectively ceased to exist. Most of its former colonies had become independent nations. The sun had finally set on the British Empire. Section 9. Legacies of Empire, a complex and contested inheritance. The legacy of the British Empire is complex and contested. It is a legacy marked by both positive and negative aspects. On the one hand, the British Empire left behind a legacy of economic development, the rule of law, and democratic institutions in many parts of the world. On the other hand, the British Empire was responsible for exploitation, oppression, and cultural destruction on a vast scale. The legacy of colonialism continues to shape the world today, influencing international relations, economic disparities, and cultural identities. Understanding the history of the British Empire is essential for comprehending the complexities of the modern world. It provides insights into the roots of global inequality, the challenges of post-colonial societies, and the enduring legacies of imperialism. The British Empire may be gone, but its impact on the world is undeniable.